Hey, what's going on, guys? This is a big box for this kit we're going to be taking a look at here today from Himoxian, part of their Rosado project. This is Starflower Lilly. Really cool design here. Reminds me a bit of Kotobukiya's Megalomaria series, where it's like a Mecha Musume style kit, but it's just mecha. So it's like a mecha girl, but doesn't really have like the sort of much of the human characteristics sort of anyway. But this box is much larger than what I was expecting, because I know the kit is meant to be 1/10 scale, so that means it should be, when built, the body at least should be similar in size to something like a frame arms girl, but this is a very, very large box for that. So, and a really cool looking box too, I should say. This is one that I am getting early, so this is not out yet. I got an early copy from the manufacturer in order to review it and share it with you guys. So it's always nice to be able to get stuff early to let you guys know about it, so you can make an informed decision if it's something that you think you want to pre-order and buy or not. But I know at least here at USA Gundam Store, we have this set on the website to be releasing in the fourth quarter. So that means sometime within the next month or two, we should be getting this one here in stock. But for now, for today, let's go ahead and check out the box. There's a lot of cool stuff to see here on the box, and then of course a lot of contents inside, and we'll check out the kit. Let's get into it. Right, so as I said, here on the outside of the box, really cool artwork, and all the gold, which there's little bits of gold that you guys can see in the reflection. The gold is reflective. So you have these little gold accents that catch the light really nicely, and then just like a nice matte finish for the rest of the art here on the front. The gold text also up there at the top. So really cool artwork here on the front of the box. You have all your labeling and everything there. On the ends of the box, it's even going to have the gold accents there, and we have different art. So this side has this sort of like bursting eye effect there for this side. The other side has the artwork, basically the same artwork without the flames coming out of the eye there. So interesting. On the bottom of the box has more info here showing some of the different equipment there, it looks like, and then like some of the different ways you can have this outfitted, whether you're like using those parts as like weapons and armor, or this sort of like less armored form there, the Lilly skirt, or as a Lilly cannon, all built like that, like what we see on the front of the box. And as you can see here, and I think we'll probably see this on the other side of the box too, it does have like a more like human looking face, so you can kind of choose between whether you want like the robot face or the human looking face. So we are going to have a lot of different option parts, and with a box this size, you can just imagine there's going to be a lot of option parts and stuff in here. You can see like for the chest, for example, whether you want it to be more robotic or more human looking for the chest parts. So a lot of different option parts we're going to have in here. On the top of the box, here's just showing the kit built up there, looks like with the decals and stuff on it. So just there on the front. And then again, like as I was saying, the option parts for the head, the robot head, the human head, or the robot head with that kind of exploding eye, flaming eye there like we saw on the side of the box. It does have parts to make that as well. The overload mode, it says there. So there you go. As a note for the materials here, you can see that this is in ABS, POM, PVC, and alloy. So there's not going to be any PS plastic, it looks like. And then the brand is Himoxian, as I mentioned, but it's also in collaboration with Ernest Core Craft there. So without any further delay, let's get it opened up. But there was a lot of cool stuff to see on the outside of the box there, as I said. And inside the box here as well, let's turn this around. You've got this really cool piece here on the inside, but if you flip this around to the other side, it makes for like the background of what we saw on the front of the box. This, I think, is the same background art there. So you can basically just set this up in your display and have this as the background behind kind of where you're displaying the kit, which is pretty awesome. So cool to include that. You also just got another protective piece of cardboard there, and then all the runners. So we've got a whole bunch here, and the bags are also labeled there. This is actually the same runner in clear orange and in gold. So I'm not sure if that's an option or it's just like you have to use both or what. I don't know, but everything looks quite big, I have to say. I don't think this is going to be in the same, like this. It's in the same scale, sort of, as like a frame arms girl, but let's see if we can find any of the parts for the actual body. Here we go. There's a lot of runners in here. There's a lot of stuff. Here's some parts for the hair. Yeah, I mean, I guess the hair looks like kind of usual size, like comparable to like frame arms girl. Here we go. Face parts there. Yeah, they definitely look like it's going to be the same size as like a frame arms girl, but still, it's interesting just how big this box is, how many runners there are, and just how big a lot of these parts feel. So you have this box, I'm not sure what's in there, we'll check that out. This bag here, which has what looks like the base plate and some instructions for that. This is probably just for the display stand. Looks like separate instructions for the display stand and all that. You have some water slide decals here as well. Oh, that's cool. These are also in gold. You can see it looks like there's a little bit of white, a little bit of black, and gold there for the decals, so those are going to look really cool. Even have those Lilly decals there with white, gold, and green. Those look really nice. So some cool decals for this one for sure. But what's in this mystery box? It feels like nothing. Feels very empty. Okay, so it's runners. 2 little runners here. This is for the bursting, the overload mode. Okay, so this is really cool. We'll take a closer look at the runners here in a minute, but just as a little kind of sneak peek, because this is in like this really cool iridescent red plastic. That looks really, really nice actually, and I think these parts are not iridescent, but it's in like a clear black. So like I said, we'll take another look at the runners in a minute, but that looks really cool. I guess that's just in the box to protect those runners because there's some small fragile parts on there. But let's go ahead and check out the manual, which feels like a book. It's rather thick. We got something more in here too. What's that? Okay, there's a lot of stuff in here, but this is, yeah, quite thick stock, especially for like the cover pages, the inner pages here too. Everything's in full color. It's really impressive here. Feels very premium. And I know that like I think the MSRP for this kit, or what we have this kit on, at least on the USA Gundam Store, I think it's only like 50 bucks. I think like there's a lot of stuff, and it seems really, really nice for that price. So I gotta say, looks pretty impressive. So you got all like the decal guide here, where all the decals go, the color guide there, as well as the decal guide, and then all the construction in between. But yeah, everything's in full color. Looks really cool. So there's a parts list there at the front. This little bit here, it's a magnet installation instructions. So I'm guessing somewhere in here we have some magnets that we're gonna put in some of those parts. And this one is another mystery item. Feels like a photo etch or something maybe, but I'm not sure. Oh, okay. It's sort of like photo etch, it's metal. This is very interesting here, almost like a bookmark or something, I guess. I'm not sure the material. I guess at first I thought it is metal, but I don't think it's metal. I think it's just a thick plastic book. Here on this side has the Starflower Lilly and like all the Himoxian and Ernest Corecraft logos here on this side. And then on this side, it is holographic. There switches between the regular mode and the overload mode there, just as like a bookmark, I guess. That's really cool. And then this part here switches between like white and gold. That's really cool. It's like just a bonus thing. It has nothing to do with the model kit, I feel like, but I like that. So for some other bits in here, we do have this bag with the 4 magnets in there. Another small bag here. This has one of the eyeball pieces there for the overload mode there that we're going to use inside the head. In this bag here, we've got the hands. And between the eyeball and the hands and other aspects of this, it is just very much reminding me of the Megalomaria series, essentially. Then we got a couple of metal rods here, black metal rods that are going to be used for this. And then getting into the parts for the base. Got this black base plate here. It's going to have a nice smooth glossy finish once we remove this. I'm going to wait and take this film off later, but also got this small little B runner here for the base. Heavy stand it's called. A couple of little bits, a couple of little screws and nuts and a spring in there. And the A runner of the base is also in this high gloss black there. So we'll have this nice glossy black. It looks like a pretty substantial base there as well. As for the rest of the runners then, let's get into it here with the first couple of runners. A, B, and C are all just going to be here in black. So there's runner A, some of those nice large pieces on there. Runner B here and runner C right there. Runner D1 is going to be here in skin tone. We've got 2 of them. It's going to be flesh tone parts for the chest and the face, but you'll see this one here has the mouth and eyebrows and like kind of around the eyes. If you look closely on that, you can see that's all pre-printed on this one. And then you have an unprinted option, basically, if you wanted to use decals or paint that yourself or something. So interesting. Runner D2, we also have 2 of here in brown. And then we've got runner D3, which is in brown here as well. Runner E, a much larger runner here. This one also in brown for some more parts for the body there, it looks like. Runner F has some parts here in white, some larger and some smaller parts there as well. It looks like those are maybe hand covers or something. Runner G2 is more parts here in white also, but runner G1 is in a slight off-white, so I wanted to show this to you for a comparison. You can see this is in a more just kind of cooler off-white. Runner G1, however, being in this warmer white, has some more printed face parts there, and you can see all of our eyeball parts here. So the eyes are going to be parts that are going to be set in the back of the head there, so you will be able to move those in different directions. That's pretty cool. Runner H in brown here as well, but in a lighter brown than what we saw on the couple of runners before. Runner I here is interesting. We've got 2 options here. Clear orange for runner I there with some of these cool parts on there, or in this plated gold, and the gold is a really nice sort of like champagne gold color. It looks really cool. We've got the same thing here for runner J. Then one runner is in plated gold and the other one is in this clear orange, so you'll have some options there for those. Runner K1 is going to be our hair parts here in this light yellow color. Interestingly, we have 3 of runner K1 and only 1 of runner K2 here. Runner L1 is another runner where we've got multiple options here, either clear orange or clear blue for these parts. And the same thing for runner L2. We've got 2 in clear blue, 1 in clear orange for these. And then runner L3, once again, we've got these clear parts here in either clear orange or clear blue. So again, lots of options here, it seems. Runners M1 and M2. Runner M1 we have 2 of, just for these like thinner, like a pipe type parts here. This is not in a softer plastic, so usually you might think that this is in like a kind of softer polycap like type of material or something, rubber or something for these parts, but it's not. So it's just regular plastic for those. And then runner M2 has some more parts here in black as well. Runner N1 is some more parts here in black. Then runner N2 is that runner that we saw before, but again in this super cool iridescent red there that just looks really, really nice under the light there. I just really can't get over how cool that looks. Runner N3 is the other runner that was in that protective box, with this one in like kind of a smoke clear there for some more of those parts for the overload mode. And then lastly, our polycaps are going to be here on runners O1 and O3 here for a bunch of polycaps there in brown. These are in a little bit softer, not quite as soft as like Bandai polycaps, but essentially going to serve the same function there. Those all in brown. But then O2 in between is a couple more parts there in black. And that's it for all the runners. There's a lot of stuff in here. So let me go ahead and get this all put together and we'll check it out. Alright guys, and here is the kit all built up. Very tall, very thin, but a really, really interesting build. If you guys missed the live build, you can go back and check that out. But it was a really interesting process putting this kit together. And I guess very much like a flower, like a lily, as you would expect from the name. I mean, it does feel, very thin, very fragile, but I think it should be okay. There was a couple of spots during the live build where I was worried, feeling like, oh, am I about to break this? Because there are some stiff parts to the articulation that we'll talk about here in some more detail. But first, let's go ahead and check out all of our accessories, and there's a lot. And so let's start off with the head and face option parts. Now, basically you have a couple of option heads that you're just going to swap out entirely. So the system for that is actually really cool. When you remove the head, the base part of like the chin there, that's where the magnet is set, and there's a magnet set inside the base of the head there. So it's very easy to just pop that onto place there, and then it's going to work on the ball joint and everything. But the ball joint is actually inside this part that stays there. So we have our kind of robot head here with these parts on the top that are movable. The hair parts are also movable up there, and the eyes are movable, and that's going to be the case for all of these heads. Let's switch here then to our human head. So again, this is just going to pop right onto place on there just via the magnet that you have set up inside of there. So it's a very interesting system. But as for the eyes, yes, the eyes are movable, and you have this sort of key piece that is very similar to like what you have for the Megalomaria kits from Kotobukiya that you can use to move the eyes and to change the directions of them. The problem is that I found them to be kind of loose, and they could be popped into the socket, and so just so they weren't moving around and I wasn't having to fiddle with them, I ended up just gluing the eyes in place, and that's kind of what I would recommend you guys to do, because they are just going to be a little bit loose in there. So it's a cool gimmick, but ultimately I think I would have rather had just multiple printed face options that you could swap out rather than movable eyes. I think would have been my preference for this one. But same thing goes for the magnet with the head switching gimmick. It is a really cool gimmick that actually does work really well. I actually don't have any problems with that, but I feel like, did it really need an additional gimmick for that, or would it just been like a whole swappable head that you just pop off the ball joint, like kind of, which is pretty normal? Would that just have been fine? I think probably so. But here we have our overload head then. In this case, obviously we have these really cool effect parts on there. And while this is really cool and it's going to work in the same way, just going to pop onto there. We just have the one piece here on this side, no circle part at the front. Again, the hair parts will move at the back, and the eyes. For all of these, I would just went ahead and glued the eyes, but then you have these really cool parts up here. Now, the downside with these is that I did break one of these parts right up there, kind of sort of broke that a little bit, but I was able to glue that back in place, and it kind of should be fine. You're probably not even going to be able to see the break very well there, but again, you're just going to want to be careful with these parts because they're very thin, but the effect on those looks really, really cool, super cool looking with that really cool glossy iridescence over the clear red. It looks really nice with those, so that looks great. Going then to our option part here for the chest. So you have this robot chest part here, which has clear blue parts in there, clear orange part, some little gold bits. It's really nicely detailed, but this can be swapped out by removing this off the front of the chest here like so. And then we've got our human sort of maid bunny costume looking part here that you can put on in place of that, just like so. So you've got that as an option. And then you do also have an option here for the back piece. Now, as you can see, this part has that hole in the back for plugging this onto the display base. If you're not going to be using that, you have a part here for the back that does not have the hole there, if you didn't want to have that on the back. So you have an option for that as well. And now real quick, I showed you this tool that you have here for moving the eyes. You also have this tool, and I couldn't really find anywhere in the manual where it shows you what this is actually used for. But this basically has these different bits here at the end, which you can swap out. You just swap them out like that. There's 4 different ones that will fit into here, and then they have kind of a different size bit on the end. And I figured out what these are actually for is actually for helping push your ball joints into place. So on some parts of the kit where it uses ball joints, sometimes it's hard to get like the ball part actually into the socket. So that's what this is for. So depending on what size the part is, you're going to use different like bits here for this, and you're just going to use this to push the ball into the socket. And again, if you saw the live stream, you saw how I was using this. So a very interesting tool. Again, it's kind of weird that you have to use something like that, but it's cool to have that included. And I also kind of wish that that was explained a little bit better in the manual too. Getting into our hand options then, here on the kit, you can see we've got 2 different options for the open hands. One just kind of like an open resting hand, one a bit more of like an aggressive posed open hand there like that. You've also got a set of more widespread open expressive hands here, and then these sort of like a claw open hands here like this as well. I think these could maybe also be used for holding different weapons or accessories, something possibly. You do have a set of closed fists, and then one thing to point out on these, you'll notice that the hand parts are in the same like flexible material, again very similar to like a Megalomaria kit from Kotobukiya, but the backing piece actually feeds through the middle of the hand, and then the connection part, that's what that actually plugs into. It actually plugs like through the dark brown part into that light blue part, which is in the middle of the hand. So it's kind of interesting way that connects. Lastly then, we've got a couple of different style of holding hands. One like a closed holding hand here for holding onto more sort of like a rod style handle, and then another style holding hand here that's meant to be at more of an angle, something like that. Now you have those holding hands, but then we do also have hands that are molded onto the handles of these accessories, and we've got a few different options for these, all for the left side and the right side. So again, whether you want to hold the handle straight or more at an angle, you have these where the hand is just already molded onto the handle itself, so you should have a pretty strong grip on that, obviously with it just being a single piece. And some other options here like this. So just depending on the weapon and depending on the weapon configuration, there's different hand options for that, where the hands again are just molded together with the handle. So that's pretty cool. As for the weapons then, coming in at around 39 centimeters in total length, very, very long. Here is the lance. Now this one is really cool here with the gold, the black, and gray parts all in set. Really cool details, and there you can see where the handle is going to attach there for that. And this part here is actually that metal rod, and you have an option for this. This is actually the shorter of the 2 options. You have another part which you could use, which would actually make this even longer, a couple centimeters longer there for the main handle for that if you wanted to. So this weapon is going to be extremely long, and then equally long here is the cannon weapon as well, which again features some really cool design in there. These parts on the front, sort of a bipod, sort of will move down like this, something like that. And again, you can kind of use that as a bipod. And there's a bunch of different configurations for these weapons and like the different armor that you can do with this, obviously, and we'll get more into that. But for the first of our armor sections here, this part is really cool with these sort of like pedal looking parts here that can open up. You got these parts here at the back. These are just like fixed pose. These aren't on like a bendable wire or anything. They're just already set like in that angle, but still a very cool design here for this section. This section here I think is supposed to be sort of like our shield section, but again, we're going to use this in a couple different ways. So there's a few different options of how you can use these. These parts can, of course, kind of open up but it's just a matter of having all these parts in the gold looks really nice with the blue, and then this large section here as well, which can act as like a skirt. You can see with all that gold on the inside looks really nice. All the black with a little bits of gold on the outside, it looks really cool. So we'll see how these can be used in different configurations. But one more thing to point out is that for all those gold parts, you have the option of just using clear orange instead for any of those. So for any of those, if you preferred the look of just this clear orange rather than the gold, you can use these parts. So you have a lot of leftover parts, because there's even the option to use clear blue instead of clear orange. So like some of the clear orange parts you can see here on the kit, if you wanted those to be clear blue instead, you've got those you can use. These little clear parts that you have down here for the feet to help it to stand up, you've got those available in orange instead of clear blue if you want. So just a ton of option parts. And then last but certainly not least, our display base, which has this mirror, like very high gloss black display base there at the bottom. And then just again, this is a metal rod, so it looks very thin, but it's actually very strong. Here at the top you have this attachment point which will bend. There's a screw here so you can adjust the tightness of that. That's where it's going to plug into the kit, and you also have this like clear adapter piece you're going to use with that as well. This is really cool. Here at the base there's actually a button for this, that when you push that in, that's how you can adjust this up and down. And when you release the button, it's then locked into place there. So you can press that and adjust the angle, and then it's locked like that. On the underside, there's a bunch more different like attachment parts and stuff. So if you have some of the other different releases from this line, you can actually connect to the bases together to have them like interlocked. So a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this. Now I know that was a lot to go over because we just have so much stuff here in the box, but just to talk a little bit more about the base kit, the overall height is going to be coming in at almost 21 centimeters in height, making this larger, at least taller anyway, than most of like your master grade Gundam kits, for example. And then for a comparison to one of Kotobukiya's Megalomaria kits, which I found this is probably in terms of construction, it's like the most related to the Megalomaria series kits, more so than like Megami Device or Frame Arms Girl or 30 Minutes Missions or anything, but still very different, very unique. But if there was anything I could compare this to, I think this would be the closest thing. But as you can see, obviously this is going to be much taller with the Megalomaria kit here, in this case only coming up to about the chest here of the Lilly kit. But as for the articulation, it's all going to be like pretty standard. Here you do have double joints in the elbows, for example, that gives you a full 180-degree bend there. And as I said, some of the joints are pretty tight, including here in the knee. So I'm going to try to be a little bit careful with this, but some really cool articulation here in the leg. So again, you have a full 180-degree bend there at the knee. But just to show that to you guys again one more time, because you can see as different parts of the leg move, you can see the knee move, and there's like a separation of these parts. You saw me having to like manually close this part here at the back, but that will move as you bend the knee here. So these parts move, that part comes out there at the bottom. And so you have just a really cool complex construction here for the knee. And the same thing goes for the rest of the kit too. I mean, again, just check out the live build, because the construction of this kit was very different, very unique. It felt like almost overly complex in some areas, but I mean, you can't argue with the results. So I think it ultimately works out really nicely. The feet are gonna work pretty simply here at the bottom as well. You can just have them without that clear blue part on there. And once I have this up on a base, obviously there's no need to use these clear blue or clear orange stand parts there for the feet, only if you want to have the kit just standing on its own, which is perfectly capable of doing with the help of those parts. But overall, it's just a lot of really interesting construction that goes into the design of this kit. Like here in the bicep, for example, that dark brown piece that's set in there, that's actually a part that you have to like push in, and it actually locks the elbow joint into the bicep, and then you have to cut that part off once it's pushed in there. It's very different, very unique. But let's go ahead and try out some of the different poses here in the different configurations, and I'll attempt to show you as much as I can, but I think there's just a lot more that you can do with this than what I would realistically be able to show you here in this short posing section of the video. But I think you guys get the idea that this is one of those kits that you just have a ton of stuff in the box and a ton of options available for you as to how you might want to ultimately display it. And trying out a few different poses with this here, honestly, I think I'm going to have a hard time deciding ultimately how I want to have this displayed, but that's definitely a good problem to have. As far as the construction goes, as I've said, there's been a couple of points, you know, throughout the building of this kit where it just kind of felt like they were trying a little bit too hard to make it more complicated than it really needed to be, like the moving eyes, like the magnet in the neck, like some of the aspects of the construction. But like I said, you kind of can't argue with the results ultimately, so long as everything's working as it's supposed to, which everything does for the most part, except like I said, for the eyes, I ended up just gluing those just to not have to deal with moving those. But other than that, I mean, everything works really well. But I will also again remind you guys just to be very careful with the construction of this. I feel like with some of the joints being kind of tight and a lot of the parts
parts being very thin, you're just going to want to be careful not to break anything. The plastic is pretty soft, which is kind of normal for a lot of these like kits that are coming from China, these original mecha model designs. In this case, it's sort of like a Mecha Musume Girl Pala type of model kit, but it's just kind of a thing for a lot of these kits. The plastic is usually like a little bit softer, and so that's fine for most cases. But if it's like a very thin part that's kind of tight and you need to rotate it, you might just like just twist the part and it just completely breaks. So just be careful with some of the parts. I haven't had anything break other than just that clear part on the overload version of the head, and fortunately I was able to glue that without any issue. But I could definitely see it being an issue if you're not careful with it. So just be careful with it, and I think that this kit is definitely one that's going to be really impressive, very unique. And that's the other important thing that I want to stress, is that I really like this just because it's so different. Kotobukiya's Frame Arms Girl, Megami Device, Megalomaria kits, those are all great. Bandai's 30 Minute Sisters kits are great. I mean, but those are pretty formulaic. I mean, once you've built one, you kind of know kind of how most of them go together. They go together really nicely, but the great thing about this kit is that it gave me a different building experience where putting it together, the end result is going to be similar, but getting there was a very different kind of build. So I enjoyed that. But anyway, guys, at the end of the day, like I always say, it always comes down to, for me, just how does the kit look? And the kit looks really cool. It's very impressive. It just has, some crazy weapons and accessories there with the different option parts that you can put on in different ways, and just kind of having a lot of different options as to how you want to display this with all the stuff that you get included in there is something that I think definitely gives this a lot of value. So definitely worth checking out. I would say let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think about this one? If you want to check it out for yourself, you can check out the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store, where we've got this kit there on the site, as well as a whole bunch of other cool stuff. So check out that link. And as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Thanks so much for checking it out today. If you're not yet subscribed, you can subscribe there down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks. Bye, guys.